Hello everyone and welcome to our recorded Kumustahan sessions for 2022. Happy New Year everyone. I hope you've had a great time during your holiday break. And now we're back because we'll be having our usual grind pa rin, with your modules. So now you are seeing on your screen the module for 21st century literature, and that's module 7, differentiating 21st century literary genres. Ayan. So I hope that you've received your modules already for this week, and the reading materials were already sent to you, and I hope that you were able to, of course, receive that prior to the Christmas break. Okay, so let me head you over to the first few parts of the module. Ayan, so on page to. So these are just a few introductory texts, but you are to start reading from page 1 of module 7. Ayan, so you have there this introductory paragraph which tells you about the lesson and then the targets for this week. So you are to of course describe the graphic fiction and flash fiction and to read and respond critically to texts read, write in one of the genres, and present the similarities and, of course, the differences of basic graphic fiction and flash fiction. And you are to show an appreciation on modern literary genres as an appealing medium to literary conventions. So those are the targets, and I hope you'd be guided by that. And then there's a pre-test here to check how much you know already about the topic, 21st century literary genres, and then you can just answer that on your own. But again, this is not a required task if only you have the time and energy to do so. And then here now comes the lesson about literary genres. There are actually two lessons here for this unit. So there's an introductory paragraph about the lesson and then asks you about the genres you are already familiar with. Ayan. So in the previous module, we had digifiction, manga, and chicklit, doodle fiction, text stock novels, and the illustrated novel, which we already studied. And now we'll have a different um, group of genres. So another task here, but again, that's not required. And now here is the first content that you are to read. So the title of the piece is My Freaking Alarm, written by Demesha Dean, published in 2014. So this is a sample of graphic fiction. If you're familiar with graphic novels and if you're into it, ayan, this is a sample of graphic fiction. So there are a lot of graphic novels available online if you want to read some of it. Ayan. So it is a creative piece written in comic form. There is a comic strip right here, and then there are snippets or captions telling what the photos or what the graphics show you. Okay, so it's graphic fiction. So it may not contain speech balloons or thought balloons. Okay, it can just have the caption alongside the pictures. So, as I lay cozy, all snug in my bed, I enjoy the images inside my head. So it sounds like a song now because it's creative writing. So until I hear racket beside my head, it's my 5 o'clock alarm. I quickly silent you annoying alarm. Then we snooze together and let dreams carry on. So you can just also pay attention the to the capital letters here. It might mean something to the writer, so you can just look into what might be the meaning behind these emphasis or behind these words that are given attention to. Ayan, snooze is spelled in all caps. Enjoying the piece, then I'll be darned. It's my 5.15 reminder. Now I hush the ringing of my reminder. Okay, alarm, let's put that behind us. I shut, but here goes the timer. It's 7:20. I'm late. Okay. So as short as that, you can already come up with a graphic fiction or a graphic work. Okay, a graphic fiction may not be a graphic novel because a graphic novel is technically longer, ano, because it has the length of a usual novel, no, of an average novel. But here, you can just have like 6 panels, ayan, just a usual comic strip that you're asked to do as a student, and then you can just draw images that show or depict the story that you want to convey. And then you can also analyze if the graphic fiction that you're seeing here observes the usual plot structure, the triangle that we have, yung uh, intro, and then yung rising action, climax, falling action, and resolution or denouement. So, yon. And I'll leave that question to you. Ano, does this graphic fiction, My Freaking Alarm, observe the usual plot structure? So, if you were able to answer the question on your own, then you might explore then creating one of your own, ano, whether you are to observe that usual plot structure or not. So we have here processing questions to help you understand the meaning of the story, My Freaking Alarm. And then now we are to explore another genre of fiction, and now it's called flash fiction. Flash fiction is more serious than the graphic fiction, no? Because here it doesn't contain images but words entirely. Okay? Wait lang, just gonna adjust something here. Ayan, there you go. Okay, so flash fiction is a really short story or a short piece, short creative piece, usually consisting of a few hundred words. Okay, so technically, it contains a few words, ano, because it's flash, di ba? Kaya nga flash, mabilisan lang. So here, ayan, we have a story, The Unlucky Winners by Nikki Johnson, published in 2019. So each morning, Jim walked to the corner mart for a coffee and lottery ticket. He always passed Pete and gave the same reply to the jangling of coins. Half when I win, Pete invariably responded with the tip of his soiled red hat. When it actually happened, Jim searched everywhere for Pete. After months, his wife finally convinced him to spend the other half, and home renovations began. The following spring, working in the garden, Jim unearthed a familiar red. While lost in astonishment and horror, the faint smell of her perfume permeated among the roses before darkness. Okay, so if you were not able to catch the meaning of certain words, you can just look it up using a dictionary. But if not, you can make use of context clues, ano, based on the meaning of the other words that surround the word that you're having trouble understanding. Okay? So ayan, that is the piece, The Unlucky Winners, written by Nikki Johnson. What could have been the meaning of the piece? Ayan, so to help you understand the meaning of that flash fiction, you can answer these processing questions. So there are 4 of that. So you can just answer that on your own. But again, that's not a required task. So now, the following paragraphs tell you more about graphic fiction or graphic novel. Okay, so what is the meaning or the nature of a graphic fiction? Okay, so ayan, it tells you about the characteristics of a graphic fiction. So it's a comic book narrative that's equivalent in form and dimension to the prose novel. So the pictures are arranged in sequence in image panels. Yun nga, yung panels, yung may hati-hati, ano, that's called panels. And dialogues are written in speech bubbles. So here, it says that it shall have speech bubbles or thought balloons. Ano, it can contain that. But in the example that was presented to you, there was no speech bubbles or thought balloons presented. The illustrations allow the readers to imagine and experience the characters and events in the story. So, some features of graphic fiction or graphic novel, according to Singh in 2012, autographic forms are the marks of author's handwriting, which creates an impact that the whole novel in a manuscript and thus provides a sense of intimacy. Graphic novels encourage interactivity in the minds of the reader because that's an interactive phase when you are presenting pictures alongside captions on or texts. Filling in the blanks between image panels makes the reader imagine the actions portrayed in the story. The language, syntax, and meaning of a graphic novel spring primarily through the relationship between images than words. So it gives more importance to images than the words. And then graphic fiction combines book and screen. Some of the examples of graphic novels are the following. If you want to look into more examples, ayan, you can look it up online. In the Shadow of No Tower 9/11 by Art Spiegelman in 2004. It tells about the story about the terrorist attack on September 11 in America. So another example is the Barn Owls Wondrous Capers by Banerjee in 2009, portrays the 18th century Calcutta exploiting the myth of Wandering Jew. And then we also have another example here by the title is Louis Riel by Chester Brown in 2003. It's a fictionalized violent rebellion in the 19th century on the Canadian prairie who was led by Riel. Flash fiction naman, it tells you about the characteristics. Ayan, so the following texts are about flash fiction already. It's an imaginative literature of extreme brevity. It could range from a word to 1,000. It's according to Gakusan in 2018. It is known as micro stories, postcard fiction, nano tales, and short shorts. Okay, so in your creative writing class for you students will be delving deeper into this as we go along your creative writing journey. But for today, because you're just taking lit as a core subject, ayan, we'll be having this na very light lang, just an intro, and just short experience on how you are going to explore and write one of your own. So, according to Sustana in 2020, most of the flash fictions have these common characteristics. First up is brevity. Flash fiction presents the story with fewest words as possible. Maiksi siya, kaya nga flash. Complete plot flash fiction emphasizes the development of plot. It has the beginning, middle, and ending of the story. So still you are expected to follow the usual plot structure, yung triangle nga na sinasabi ko. And then if you are into just the simpler type of plot, then basta may beginning, middle, and end, you're good to go. And then, surprising ending, the successful hallmark of a flash fiction is its twist at the end of the story. So you really have to think about it and which ending would you want to give your flash fiction. So a few examples of flash fictions you might want to look into. We have Angels and Blueberries by Tara Campbell. It is a story of various explanations for the color of the sky that involves angels and blueberries. We have here the first lines. So, first lines are important because it gives you the first impression of a literary piece. Like, meron nga mga challenges online and like sa social media na give me the first line of the book that captivated you, no? Parang ganun. Because it serves like the hook, the hook in a news article. So the first lines should captivate the reader, should catch the attention, should wow, the people reading the literary piece. So from Angels and Blueberries, the first lines are, "Why is the sky blue, you ask? Well, it all depends on who's answering." Diba? That's very intriguing, no? And then we have Taylor Swift. So the title of the piece is Taylor Swift by Hugh Bem Steinberg. It tells a weird story of how anyone can order a perfectly clone of Taylor Swift at his doorstep. First line, "You're in love. It's great. You swipe on your phone and order. The next day, a Taylor Swift clone shows up at your house." Diba? So you'd be intrigued then and picked, okay, what could be the next lines after that first line, and that makes you want to read it more. Unnecessary Things by Tatiana Tolstaya is a story of finding an old and torn teddy bear, unnecessary things, items that do not serve any useful purpose, that she adored as a child. First line, "This teddy bear once had amber eyes made from special glass. Each one had a pupil and an iris. The bear itself was gray and stiff with wiry fur. I adored him. Okay, so to medyo emotional yung feel nung first lines. Ano? And ayan, those are the examples of flash fiction. And now for the activity, ayan, so that's a task for you. So here's the rubric, but I have a special task for you ano, based on our weekly home learning plan that which I will discuss later. So ayan, now that we're done with the content, there's another test here. So this is an assessment of your learning. That's the post test actually, and you can answer that. But again, that's not a required task. So now let's go on to our weekly home learning plan for us to be guided of what you are to do this week. Mag-entire screen na nga ako. So, for your weekly home learning plan for our subject 21st century literature from the Philippines and the world, actually mali na nga ako ng nalagay na date because I was expecting actually that we'll be having the distribution this week, and then you'll be receiving the modules for January 10 to 14, but you may just disregard the dates ano, because we'll be having that a week earlier ano. So technically right now it's January 4, so yung module nyo that you receive for now would be for January 3 to 7. Okay? So, 6 o'clock to 7 o'clock, you're expected to wake up, say a prayer, make your bed, eat your breakfast, organize your study area, write your to-do list for the day, prepare your learning materials, have some water and snacks ready, and look forward to a productive learning day and all tasks that you are to accomplish ano, prior to studying. Now, for week 11, ayan, your targets are, pinaghiwalay ko yung targets ano, for us to have a proper distribution of the competencies and of course to find the appropriate activities for you that would address these competencies. So you are to describe, so in the morning you are described to, you are expected to describe graphic fiction and flash fiction, present similarities and differences of basic graphic fiction and flash fiction. Now, for your task, you are to read and understand the content of your module from pages 1 to 17, and you are to compare and contrast graphic fiction and flash fiction by writing details in the Venn diagram found in your activity sheet. You are to focus on their distinct characteristics that qualify them as a 21st century literary genres. Nakikipaglaban sa akin yung aso sa palakasan ng boses. Okay. So you are to compare and contrast graphic fiction. And now if you're going to check your weekly home learning plan and your activity sheet, ayan, this is how it looks like. So it's a Venn diagram right here where you're asked to compare and contrast graphic fiction and flash fiction. So you can just write in the similarities and differences of these two genres, ayan, in this graphic organizer. And then, how did you come up with such answers? Explain them in a few sentences right here. Ano? So, I'll know how were you able to get those answers. Ano? And how were you able to compare and contrast them? Now, we have a literary spin-off for your activity naman sa hapon. So, you are to read and respond critically to texts read, write in one of the genres, show an appreciation on modern literary genres as an appealing medium to literary conventions. Okay, so for this section, you are to read and understand, of course, the content of your module and then conceptualize your own literary spin-off. Now, what is a literary spin-off? A literary spin-off is another genre of writing, actually, no? So, it is a story that you write based on an already existing story. So, what I want you to do is to write another story that is taken from that story you just have read. So, you have two options here. You can write about the unlucky winners, and then ano nga yung title ng isa? May freaking alarm. Okay? So, before we get into the real activity, there are some ideas for you to start off your own literary spin-off. So, you can write from the point of view of another character in the story. So in My Freaking Alarm, there's only one character. In the unlucky winners, there are two characters. We have Pete and kalimutan ko yung isa. Si Pete and si, let's go back to that. si Pete and Jim. Okay, so si Jim and si Pete. Okay, so you can write in the point of view of either Jim or Pete. Okay, so that's your choices. And then another choice would be writing from the point of view of a new character you added to the original story. If say you want to add another character in the Unlucky Winners or in the Sorry My Freaking Alarm, you can do that, okay, because it's already a spin-off. But it doesn't necessarily mean that you are to write again using the title of that piece. You can write your own title to that, okay? And then at the bottom part of the title, you can just say that this is a spin-off of the certain story. So still you are going to credit where did the idea come from and what is the original story where you got the idea from. So next, you can write from the point of view of the villain. So in this case, we don't have naman the villain and the superhero thing, but you can write about that. If so, you are going to write a spin-off of another story if there's another task given to you on that. But since you are still beginners, I'm just giving you the choices, My Freaking Alarm and the Unlucky Winners. Next up, you can invert the world of the original story. Say you can place the character in a world of a dystopian world, or maybe of a utopia where everything is perfect. Okay, so you can invert the world of the original story. Bahala na kayo mag-twist ng plot na yan. And then writing about the story that occurs prior to or after the existing story. So this is where we actually get the prequel and the sequel, no? Kaya merong mga story na bigla na lang, 'di ba? Halimbawa, may books ang Harry Potter. So that's 1 to 7, and then biglang magkaka-story na prior to the first book. That's because that is called prequel. And then after you expected that the books are already over, biglang may bagong story na uh, that will come after, and that's because that's called the sequel. Okay, so expect that a writer can be creative, that he or she can create a story in the middle of, like, say, two books, or at least after every saga. Okay, so the writer has the right to do that, actually. Okay, so these are just some ideas for you to start off your own literary spin-off. Ayan, and now the task is, here you're going to choose na, okay, because we have assignment options here, and then you're only going to choose one. Excuse me, you are going to write your own literary graphic novel and spin-off of the Mesha Dean's My Freaking Alarm in 2014 by drawing a 6-panel comic in your activity sheet. So what I did here was, if you're going to write about My Freaking Alarm, then you're going to write something about that as well in the same genre. And then that same thing goes for the Unlucky Winners. You're going to write your literary flash fiction spin-off of Nikki Johnson's The Unlucky Winners. Do this by limiting your flash fiction to 100 words. So still, you're going to write in one of the genres, whether that's flash fiction or whether that's graphic fiction, but it can also be a literary spin-off. So it's like two genres in one. Okay? So again, there's a warning sign here. Plagiarized submission shall automatically earn 0 points. And I think that you won't be able to plagiarize because you're going to structure your content based on the content then ng stories that we have just read. Okay? So for the activity sheet, let's just look at that. So do not forget to answer the mental health check-in. Sign that with your name and the date and time as well. So now we have the activity sheet for week 12. So we have here the directions again, and there's massive space for you to write your answers. I also printed an extra sheet so that if ever you made the mistake in the first sheet, then you can just use that second sheet. No? So also, do not forget to answer yung ulat ng pagsubaybay ng magulang or tagapag-alaga sa pagkatuto ninyo, and then involve your parents in your learning as well. Let them sign this and then write comments about your learning, and then also the date and time. Okay? So, ayan, that's it for our session our recorded session for January 3 to 7, 2022. Ayan, Happy New Year everyone. And this is also to remind you that in the next few weeks, please expect that you'll be receiving instructions on our course end of course task. Okay, this is heavier than the usual modular tasks that you are to do because at the dali, I'm gonna show you our target so that you'll be guided then. Let me just share again my screen. So, the creative writing to. So, we'll be looking for 21st century literature. I'm telling you as early as now that there are difficult tasks to come because that's based on the MELCs or the most essential learning competencies for the subject. Ayan. So we're already here at comparing and contrasting the various 21st century literary genres, and now for weeks 13 and 14, you are to produce a creative representation of a literary text by applying multimedia and ICT skills. Ayan, please expect that you are to use your ICT skills this time for you to be able to produce a creative representation of a certain literary text or piece. And then, but of course, I'll be giving options pa rin for those who do not have internet, for those who do not have their gadgets, no? Because still we are in a modular distance learning modality, but I'm just emphasizing here that we are to use our multimedia and ICT skills this time. Also, you are to do a self and or peer assessment of the creative adaptation of a literary text based on rationalized criteria prior to presentation. Ayan. So this is connected to that task where you are to apply your multimedia and ICT skills naman. No? So there should be no worry. Okay? So please expect that you are to receive the modules, the instructions early because I'll be giving out yung weeks 13 and 14 and 15 and 16 ng sabay. Ano, for you to have more time then in doing your tasks. Okay? So that would be all. I'll be sending the recording of this to our class chat group. Okay? Thank you so much and happy new year again. Keep safe everyone.